I'm going to talk to you about the environmental sustainability of biofuels. Blue indicates the arguments for and red against. The first point is that they're renewable, currently the only source of renewable transport fuel through photosynthesis. So by using photosynthesis, they have the ability to sequester carbon and therefore mitigate climate change. This is by replacing carbon-intensive fossil fuels. However, unintended consequences such as indirect land use change release more carbon emissions due to the displacement of current land. Biodiversity can also be affected, so the demands for biofuels can diminish habitat availability and heighten the risk of species already imperiled. There's indirect costs of intensive agricultural production, such as soil erosion, pesticide and fertiliser pollution of ground and surface waters. And finally, the transition of biofuels will lead to a larger water footprint for the global transport sector. This is my quantitative evidence for. The first bullet point states the EU requirement for greenhouse gas savings. So if the targets are met, biofuels will save more than 35% greenhouse gas emissions in comparison to fossil fuels. This was using the well-to-wheel analysis that found that by 2050 there could be a total of 3.6 gigatons of CO2 equivalent savings made. And using degraded lands, there's 190 exajoules of land that could potentially be used for bioenergy production, and these would have little negative impacts on biodiversity and greenhouse gas emissions. My quantitative evidence against. Figure 2 shows 9 different scenarios of biofuel production. From this, Fargoin et al. Found that Indonesia, Brazil and the US biofuels carbon repayment is over 50 years. And this can be as high as 423 years carbon payback time in peatland rainforest in Indonesia and Malaysia. And in figure 3 depicts the potential energy from biomass cropping. It looks potentially beneficial, the dark blue indicating where most energy can be harvested. However, if you look at figure 4, which depicts the areas of water exploitation, such as areas of central Spain, northern France, southern and southeast Britain, we will experience, because we're in the 40% water exploitation bracket, with more water shortages as biofuels intensify. So my evaluation is, deforestation is not the answer, so cutting down the lungs of the earth to meet our requirements of getting from A to B just that bit faster will come with devastating consequences. In this respect, the policy is unsustainable. In terms of industrial agriculture, so which is farming on a huge scale, has to be thought about carefully. Monoculturing is potentially dangerous. Collapse of a staple crop due to a disease will bring more environmental harm than good. Also, pollution involved with agriculture, so polluting the airways and waterways through the use of chemical sprays will harm the environment. However, if we continue on this path of biofuels, which we will be doing, I believe that GM crops will play a major role as the technology advances. Currently in the UK, we tend to avoid GM crops, but if we were to have a crop, say, was resistant to Roundup, we could use less specialised pesticides and just use a blanket spray of Roundup, which would be easier to apply and easier to monitor. So finally, this is an attempt to diversify our energy demands. It's a step in the right directions away from dirty fossil fuels. So by 2020, we'll see whether the costs outweigh the benefits, but this is especially regarding its carbon dioxide output and regarding climate change.